Hello and welcome to the Reviews Brothers. It's nearly Christmas, a time for spreading joy and dishing out presents. And what better present than a video from me about Christmas games. We'll be taking a look at a few festive themed games that are fun to break out, either because they're specifically Christmas game or maybe they're just cozy and relaxing and perfect for a winter's evening. To help spread the cheer, I've also had some help from some of my gaming community buddies. What more could you want? Now, how about I shut up and we take a look at some games. We are starting on the Super Nintendo with Daze Before Christmas from Sunsoft. It was also released on the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis. In this platform game, you play as Santa himself in a quest to save Christmas after a load of presents have been stolen. Your reindeer have been kidnapped, and some creatures from the naughty list have decided to be a bunch of bastards. Thankfully, Santa isn't going to stand for this, so grabs his trusty sack and sets out to get the presents back. Rescue his reindeer and save Christmas. Oh, and of course give that pesky Jack Frost a kick in the icicles. The game plays like a fairly standard platformer. You move from left to right, but the levels have a fair bit of verticality to them, so you'll need to do a bit of exploring if you want to collect the presents. You can open some of them too. These will have items in them like extra health, lives or power-ups that make your Santa magic more powerful. That's right, to attack, Santa uses his magic as a projectile. This makes light work of most enemies and can be upgraded to a flame attack in some levels, doing even more damage. Every now and then you'll come across a cup of tea in a level, and just like in real life, when you drink this, it turns you into Anti-Claus, the evil version of Santa. Then you're invincible and you move a bit faster. When you're like this, you can't use your magic. Instead, you have to swing your heaving sack at enemies' faces to defeat them, kind of like Toby Von Doom. The levels themselves are quite varied, taking you around the houses, ice caps, factories, magical caves and more. There's plenty of enemies to watch out for, which can be tricky as you do move pretty fast, and the game has massive sprites, making it hard to see enemies in time, but there's usually plenty of health, so it's not too bad. There is actually a fair bit of tricky platforming in some of the levels as well, which can be made harder by the fact that Santa himself is pretty slippery to control and doesn't stop immediately when you let go of the button. After every few levels, which are represented by an advent calendar by the way, which I think is a really cool touch, you'll fight a boss. These are good fun and have simple patterns to work out. Once you've beaten the boss, the next level usually sees you delivering all the presents you've collected in the previous levels. You know which ones you need to deliver presents to, as they're the ones with smoke coming out of the chimneys, so you've got to time your button press so the present lands in the chimney. Let's hope the wrapping paper is fireproof and there's no pets in the presents though, eh? The game looks actually really good, with some great cartoony visuals and some super smooth animation. The music is all very Christmassy, with some variations on recognisable Christmas tunes. Now this is a surprisingly good game. I mean, it is from Sunsoft, so you know it's going to have a bit of quality to it, and it really is a fun platformer. It is a little generic, and maybe a bit too easy, but that's actually kind of what you want for a Christmas game. Something light-hearted and fun, and that's what this is. Here's James Pond 2 Codename Robocod for the Sega Master System. The game has also been released on just about everything ever for the time, and is even available on the Switch, but I don't talk about the Master System enough, so here it is. You play as the punnily named James Pond, and you find out that the evil Dr. Maybe has gone to the North Pole and taken over Santa's toy factory, so you get your fins over there to help Santa get it back and rescue his workers. Of course, the evil doctor has been using the workshop to put evil toys to get in your way. There's a whopping 50 levels here, and your goal in most of them is to just explore and find the flashing exit pole. But it's not that easy. The levels themselves are mainly absolutely massive and packed with enemies. These can be defeated by jumping on their heads. James can jump pretty high for a fish and can take a couple of hits before dying. And to help him get around the levels, you have a crazy infinite stretch ability. Mr. Pond can stand still and extend upwards as far as the level will allow. If there's something above you, you'll grab it and pull yourself up, where you'll cling to the ceiling and can shimmy around, accessing new areas. But if anything touches you while you're extending, you'll go back to the ground. Thankfully, you don't take any damage while you're extending. Man, I've said extending a lot. So you'll soon learn to extend just about everywhere, just to see if there's any secrets or items that you may have missed otherwise. And there's plenty of items here. Most of them are for points, but you'll find stars that give you health back, as well as 1-ups, and even wings that let you fly for a while. These are really handy and should make sure you grab them whenever you see them. Every few levels you'll fight a boss. These tend to be a massive version of smaller enemies, and they have some pretty simple patterns for you to figure out, but they can be quite tricky, though this is mainly thanks to some slightly dodgy collision detection. There were plenty of times where I'd take damage where I don't really think I should have done. James moves really fast as well, which can make running into spikes or other enemies a common thing. As well as this, there's a big reliance on blind leaps of faith. Most of the time these end up with a spike up your ass, which is annoying. Graphically, I think the game looks great. The backgrounds are a bit mental and sometimes distracting, but all the characters and things look great, and almost 16-bit. You do get some sprite flicker, but that's to be expected, and there is a bit of slowdown as well, but it never ruins anything. This is a cute game, but it is hard as balls. You get a few lives and 3 continues to beat all 50 levels. There's no save or password, at least not in this version, and some of the levels are very maze-like, which can make it annoying to play. But I have owned this game for years on my Sega Master System, and I really do have a bit of a soft spot for it, even though I've never actually managed to get more than about halfway through it. But I'd say it is worth a play if you like platform games. Now, so I can have a break to take a sip of eggnog, here is the one and only Beltbuckle Bill.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, I'll kill your wife today. For you are John McClane, yippee-ki-yay, so shoot me out a building tonight. Hello everybody, I'm Beltbuckle Bill, and these are my thoughts on Die Hard Trilogy. I always struggle with that word. Firstly, I'm not sure whether there is any debate. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Die Hard and Die Harder are set on Christmas Eve. The third is not. Moving on. Die Hard Trilogy was released on the PlayStation 1 in 1996, developed by Probe Entertainment and published by Fox Interactive. And let's not mess around, it's a banger. The game follows the 3 films, oddly enough, and by the game I mean 3 games. The first game, Die Hard, is based on the first movie, of course, and is a third-person shooter. You take control of badass wisecracker John McClane, as you have to kill all the terrorists in Nakatomi Tower. Once you kill all the terrorists on a level, a bomb is sent down, just like the movie, and you have to reach it before the timer runs out. You then proceed to the next level, copy and paste. You have a radar, which is useful, so you are less likely to be snuck up on as you use handguns, machine guns, shotguns and grenades in the main to take out the evil scum. You only start with a handgun and a couple of grenades, but you pick more up on the way. There are hostages to rescue that give you health when you do rescue them, and you lose health if you kill them on accident. The controls are a little bit janky, but they add a level of difficulty to the game. The AI is pretty stupid, and you can kill baddies off screen, so long as you see the red blip on your radar directly in front of you. But they can also sometimes kill you off screen, so be careful. This is my favourite of the 3 games. Graphically, it looks terrible, but the gameplay is wonderful. The second game, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, you'll be surprised to know, is based on the second movie. There are 2 reviews for this game, and here is the first one if you are not able to use a light gun. Fucking terrible. Honestly, I can't see how anyone can play a rail shooter with a controller or a mouse and enjoy it. At first I couldn't get my light gun to work, so I grabbed some footage using a controller, and boy did it suck. It's just clunky, slowly moving your cursor side to side to kill the terrorists. I think I have PTSD from it. There is footage on my channel, should you want to watch me suffer. Now, the second review, if you are using an actual light gun, is fucking fantastic. Sure, the graphics don't hold up anymore, but if you can't enjoy railing your way through the iconic movie scenes, blasting everything in your way, there is something wrong with you. And by everything, I mean everything. Windows, vending machines, trash cans, plants, flooring, ceiling tiles, everything can be torn apart by your arsenal of handguns, machine guns, shotguns, rockets and grenades. The sound effects of gunfires and explosions and deaths are superb. This is a blast, with so many hours of replayability. This game stole so many hours of my life, and I was glad to have them stolen. Finally, Die Hard with a Vengeance. Weirdly enough, it is based on the movie, but only in so much as there are terrorists, bombs and taxi cabs. It's a driving game, you see, as you have to drive around New York City, crashing into bombs to defuse them, as well as other cars, trucks and a helicopter, as well as occasionally having to outrun a truck in the sewer system and get to the bomb before they do, just like in the movie. You pick up turbos, time extensions and points, and as a nice nod to the movie, you can pick up an EMS token, which sends out an ambulance that ploughs through vehicles to give you a clear path to the bomb. There's also a launch token that catapults you into the air, but I can't remember that from the film. This is definitely the hardest of the three, as the car controls terribly, including no reverse button, at least I couldn't work out how to reverse. But once you sink countless hours into it, you'll improve, and the game improves. Stick with it. I always enjoyed this game. It's not as good as the first two, and I don't feel the same way about the movies. But it will still get your heart pumping, as you have to race against the clock to stop Simon Gruber. I love everything about Die Hard Trilogy. 3 different game styles for the choosing, lots of replayability, and taxing, but not impossible. This is one to fire up whenever you fancy a run, gun, or drive.
Where you're supposed to
Thanks 3B, make sure you check out all his stuff with the links in the description below. For those of you that don't like Christmas, you might want to check out The Grinch, released for the PlayStation 1 and Dreamcast. This is the Dreamcast version. Based on the movie that is based on the book, you take control of the Grinch, a green thing that doesn't like Christmas because people were bastards to him when he was a kid, which is fair enough. And Christmas has come around again, so the Grinch wants to make sure that everyone has a miserable time, and the only way to do that is in a 3D platform game. You'll explore quite a few large levels, each of which have a list of objectives to complete. These involve doing things that will make people have a bad day, and honestly, I kinda like that concept in a game. So, one minute you're throwing eggs through people's windows, the next you're defacing posters, then you're mixing up letters in a post office so they don't get delivered to the right place. You even have to throw beehives down people's chimneys at one point. The objectives are fun, but not always easy or intuitive. You're exploring Whoville, and its citizens will often try to stop you by giving you a beating, or even worse, they'll try and give you hugs. Make sure you use your bad breath to stun them, or one of the weapons you make as you go, like the egg launcher. There's plenty of things to collect in levels. These are sometimes items that you need for a task in the level, or sometimes they're blueprints which you will use to make new inventions, which you'll need to complete certain tasks. What's cool is that your dog Max is with you, and you can switch to him at any point. Max runs fast and can avoid certain things that the Grinch isn't nimble enough to do. He's also smaller, so can fit into smaller areas that the Grinch can't. You'll need to use Max to complete certain objectives in every level, and the fact that you get to be the dog already makes this game worth playing. And it's just as well, because it's not the best game out there. Though it really isn't the worst, and I can imagine that this is a game that the over-dramatic internet dump on a lot. The graphics are pretty ropey. You can tell it was a PS1 game first and then was just sort of smoothed out a bit for the Dreamcast, but the animation isn't too bad, if it can be a bit jerky. The main issue for me though are the controls and camera. They do the job, but precise movement and jumping is very hard to do, and the camera's just awful. You can control it, well, barely, with the L and R buttons, but unless you're out in the open, it rarely moves more than a couple of inches. The objectives can be pretty vague too. There's hundreds of presents that you'll need to destroy on each level, which is easy enough, but most of the other objectives have very little in the way of direction, hints, or even a proper explanation. Levels can take way longer to beat than they should, thanks to the fact that you're wandering around without much of an idea of what you're meant to be doing, and there were actually times where I was stuck because I couldn't move the camera to see a thing that I needed to collect or interact with. But even after all of that, I would actually say it's not a bad game, really. Well, it is, but it is quite fun, as long as you don't go in expecting Mario 64. It's a middle-of-the-road movie tie-in game that has some cool ideas and will probably entertain you for a little bit. Just don't spend the stupid amount of money on it that it's currently going for. The Grinch also got a game on the Game Boy Color. The story is of course the same, and this time round you have a simple puzzle game. It is a simple game. You are the Grinch and your mission is just to steal all of the presents in every level while avoiding the Who's. It's an isometric perspective and you're told how many presents there are on every level. These can be either on a single screen or split over multiple screens, even having buildings to go into and all sorts. The Grinch can walk around and you have a button to crouch, which lets you get through small gaps, and you have a button to use your bad breath, which you can use to stun the bastard Who's. You'll need to stun as many citizens as you can, as they sometimes drop candy, which gives you points. If they see you though, they'll chase you, and they're pretty damn fast. Outrun them for long enough, or get onto a different screen, and they'll soon forget about you though. Some of them will throw things at you as well. Usually this doesn't kill you, it just stuns you so they can catch you. Bastards. You get a few lives here, and if you're caught, you go back to the first screen of that level, but all the presents you've nabbed stay nabbed, so you don't have to collect them all over again, which is really nice. However, if you lose all of your lives and continue, you will have to start again from the beginning of that stage, but you do get unlimited continues, which is nice. The game looks decent enough, with some cool colours and a surprising amount of different character sprites, which is nice, but there isn't much music, but it is fairly inoffensive. And once again, later on in the game you do get to play as Max again, which is always a plus. And really, that's all there is to it. It is a very simple game, you literally just go around collecting presents and avoiding people, and I found myself playing it for way longer than I expected to. I would definitely say this is worth playing if you want something relaxing that also lets you ruin people's virtual Christmas. Now it's time for me to get another glass of eggnog, so I'm going to pass over to the capable hands of Laura from Laura Plays Games for one of her festive recommendations.
Hi, my name is Laura and I have chosen an oldie but a goodie for my Christmas game, and that is Animal Crossing New Horizons. There is so much wintry content that was added to Animal Crossing. There is the Toy Day celebration, which happens all across Christmas Eve. In the lead up to that, there is just the change to the whole of the island. There's the snow coming down, there's the Christmas lights in the little Christmas fir trees, there's the snowflakes everywhere that you can catch, and you can make specific items that you can craft with the new recipes that you get for those. There is the snow boy that you can build. There's little snowballs lying around, and if you roll them to exactly the right size, you will build a perfect snow boy, and that's how you get your snowflake recipe cards. During the Toy Day Festival, all of the characters are wearing cute little Santa hats, well, most of them are, and you can just dress up in your coziest little Christmas outfit, run around talking to all your villagers. I definitely go back and play Animal Crossing every Christmas. I don't think, to be honest, really I touch it very often in between anymore, and in fact when I rebooted the game up to play it again to do this, I already had snowflakes in my pocket, so I know it was Christmas that I was playing it last. And I think for me, Christmas is all about traditions and kind of doing the same things over and over again every year, and Animal Crossing definitely falls into that category for me. There's a lot of nostalgia there with Animal Crossing. I'm a long time fan, and I've been playing it for years and years and years on multiple consoles going back into the past. And when I was asked to take part in this video, there was no game that sprung to my mind faster than Animal Crossing New Horizons for a Christmas game. And one of the best things about it is, even if you've not played for months and months and months like I haven't, all of your villagers are still so happy to see you, and they're so friendly and saying hello, and it's just lovely. It's very welcoming and it's absolutely great. And if you haven't tried Animal Crossing New Horizons yet, I don't know where you've been, but now is the time to try it. It's the best time to pick it up and get into it, because there is so much to do in this season and it just carries on. There's then the Easter festival comes very shortly after. There's always something seasonal going on, and that's why it has to be my Christmas pick for this video.
Thanks Laura, and don't forget to check out Laura's other videos when you're done watching this one. Links in the description below. Over to the Sega Saturn now for Christmas Nights into Dreams. This is a cool little game for the system that was given away free through various means depending on where you lived. It's a sort of demo, but sort of its own thing. There is a slow, drawn out intro about how you need to collect all the decorations that have gone missing for various trees. The gameplay in Nights is good fun. You start as a kid and you've got a choice between two, but the only difference is gender. Then you go to a launchpad thing where you're transformed into a creepy Christmas jester, and you have to fly around some 2.5D levels, collecting a certain number of items within a certain time limit. You'll need to collect baubles, and if you have enough, then you can deposit them at a checkpoint, which then lets you move on to the next part of the level. If you don't have enough, the stage will loop until you do. What's interesting is that if you run out of time, you don't lose. Instead, you turn back into your creepy kid and have to walk around until you find the nearest launch pad to get yourself back as the freaky festive jester. When you turn back, the game actually plays like a 3D platform game, and you can run around wherever you want until you find the launch pad. Thankfully, there is always an arrow pointing where you need to go, and these bits are a little bit funny looking because they're a bit janky. There are enemies on the levels. These can be defeated by flying in a circle around them, which creates a barrier, and they'll slowly die a painful death by suffocation. You can also use the circle thing to collect loads of items at once. As well as things to collect, you also find gates in the levels that you'll need to fly through. These give you points, and really that's what this game is all about. It's just a big score attack game. You can't really die or lose, you're just given a score ranking at the end based on your performance. Actually, that's not entirely true, as there is a boss fight at the end of the level where you fight a big dragon thing. This is pretty cool and fun to fight, and the first time I did, it took me a few minutes to figure out what I had to do, but once you do, it's not too hard. After you beat the game, which only takes about 20 minutes of each playthrough, then you'll get the chance to play a matching game. These have a cool little bonus behind them if you manage to make a match. Sometimes it's just artwork, but you can actually get other characters to play as, including the bad guy from the original Knights game and even Sonic. This is a really nice touch and gives you plenty of reasons to go back and play through it again and again to get a better score. It looks decent with some cool 3D models. The Christmas theme really works here as well, which is nice, and it all runs very smoothly. The music is also great if you like Jingle Bells, because that's what you're going to hear the whole time, but it is a funky version. Even though this is a very short experience, it really is good fun, and one that I would totally recommend playing over Crimbo if you can get your hands on it. Now, my cup appears to be empty again, so I'd better pass over to Ultraflamz 64 while I go fill it up.
Elf is the classic Will Ferrell Christmas movie that everyone watches during the holiday season. Except I'm not talking about the movie at all, because this channel does not review movies. Instead, I'll be talking about a very weird and forgotten tie-in video game released 1 year after the movie, possibly meant to tie in with the home media release of the movie. You know, now that I think about it, how the hell do you make a game based on Elf? A movie where a man raised by elves learns about his human origins and searches for his biological father in New York City. Well, this is how. Wow, this game looks f***ing ugly as hell. So in Elf, the movie, which is a pretty stupid f***ing name for a game, like, why didn't they just simply call it Elf, the video game? It's just confusing as hell if you refer to this game as Elf the movie, because people will think you're talking about the movie and not the game. So anyways, in Elf the movie, you of course play as Buddy the Elf, who looks absolutely nothing like Will Ferrell. And almost immediately after starting the game, I noticed how weird and very low budget this game looks. The game seriously looks like it's trying to have a pre-rendered style, akin to games like Donkey Kong Country. But the developers likely did not have the time or budget to make the game look like Donkey Kong. Also, the game's music itself sounds like royalty-free Christmas music that you play in YouTube videos to avoid getting copyright claims. So anyways, all you're doing is simply walking to the end of the stage, collecting candy, as well as stars that can replenish your health. That's it. Just make it from point A to B in a grand total of 10 levels. Yeah, the game can be very piss easy just by going off the footage of this game alone. But don't be fooled, because there is one problem that is so goddamn infuriating. You see, when you get hit by something like this weird looking polar bear that looks like a Beast Wars reject, as well as icicles or falling in the pits and f***ing water, you don't just get hit or knocked back like in a normal video game. No, instead, the game respawns you back to the checkpoint very slowly as the camera pans back to the last checkpoint. Every single f***ing time. This got so goddamn annoying fast, and it especially got worse on the overhead iceberg level that has you hopping from one iceberg to another. But it doesn't help that you have to land on the right spot, cause if you're just one pixel off, you fall in the water and you have to respawn to the goddamn checkpoint. And what's worse is that when you die, you lose all of your health, and you have to restart the entire stage all over again, no matter if you've reached any checkpoints in the level whatsoever. Which means that you gotta do all the same annoying and repetitive shit all over again. Now I hated this level so much that I straight up just gave up playing this game that literally takes an hour to beat. But thankfully the game has passwords between levels and I could just skip this level cause f*** this level. So the game itself does follow the plot of the movie, with Buddy starting at the North Pole and ending up in New York City. But the game itself doesn't even explain to you what's going on, because all you get are these grainy pictures from the movie with no context. So for the other stages in the game, you have a sledding level, a level that takes place on the streets, and even a snowball throwing level that takes place in the park, just like the movie. But wait, why is Buddy throwing snowballs at elves and Santa? In the movie, Buddy was throwing snowballs at this group of kids who were attacking him and his brother. Well, that's another point off for this game for its inaccuracy to its source material. You also have this puzzle solving level in the mailroom, and the level where you have to deliver presents via the elevator. What the hell kind of levels are these? These levels feel like games you play on sites like Mathletics or CoolMathGames.com back in like elementary school. But my guess is that they're only here because the developers were so desperate for more levels. So anyways, you also have another boring level where Buddy drops off presents at houses that are the exact same color as the wrapping paper. Then you finally have another side-scrolling level that ends off with Santa's sleigh taking off in New York, similar to the climax of the movie. And with that, the game just ends. So in the end, Elf the Movie the game is just a nothing and meaningless game that is not worth your time whatsoever. Even if you like the movie or are just curious about this game's existence, the game has boring levels, boring gameplay, terrible graphics, and soulless music. But hey, at least a good thing I can say about this game is that it's certainly a better adaptation of a movie than all three of those terrible Blues Brothers games I reviewed a long ass time ago. Anyways, thanks for having me on the show again.
Thanks for that, Ultraflamz, and don't forget to check out all his stuff, links in the description below. Here is Santa Claus Saves the Day for the PlayStation 1. Ho ho, oh no. This is clearly a budget title, but like the bottom end of the spectrum for budget games. You play as Santa Claus, and you need to save the day because a bunch of free stock assets are causing mischief, and it's the night before Christmas. Who'd have thought? So basically, an evil fairy is annoyed at Santa for being a good guy, but instead of stealing the presents like most evil people do on Christmas-themed things, instead she sticks Santa in a strange enchanted land. So Santa has to explore 15 levels, collecting items and avoiding enemies to escape. The gameplay is pretty basic. It's a 2D platform game where you have to explore some pretty large levels, looking for keys and collecting coloured disc things that will help you unlock doors within the levels until you find the exit. Santa moves incredibly slowly and is also pretty damn annoying to control. The buttons are in a strange layout and not really where you'd expect them to be on the controller, which is always a good start. As mentioned, there's little weird disc things that you can collect. I never really noticed them doing anything though. I'm sure that you probably get lives or something from them. I mainly used them as a way of figuring out where I had and hadn't been, as a lot of the levels look basically the same. There are enemies in the levels, and these are just so random, and they all just look like they've been taken from a bunch of stock assets and thrown in the levels willy-nilly. There's cavemen and cowboys, often in the same levels, as well as weird bird things, porcupines and other nonsense. It just makes no sense. You can defend yourself with a few projectiles like snowballs that you'll also find in the levels. These are pretty slow and hard to aim though, but kind of do the job. If you do run out of projectiles though, you can swing your massive sack, but this is basically useless and the collision detection is terrible. Also, the levels themselves have random things thrown in them, like you'll be exploring an underground cave and there'll be a fan on the wall, or a bunch of TVs, or just a clock on the wall for absolutely no reason. It's just dumb. The further into the game you get, you also get more puzzle elements, like platforms to ride which have levers that you need to pull to activate them, but the levers are often hidden somewhere else on the level. So really I guess that's less of a puzzle and more just exploring a tedious level until you find a switch. As you will have noticed, the graphics are bad, the animation is bad, and it all just seems so thrown together with little to no effort. The controls match this, technically they are functional, but it's also slow that it feels like a real chore to play. And of course the music really sucks too, with what I'm assuming are a bunch of stock music tracks that are only a few seconds long and loop over and over. So yeah, this game is rubbish. It's one of those games that really makes you wonder why they bothered at all, but hey, I'm the one talking about it, so maybe I'm the idiot. Make sure you play this one, so I'm not the only one that suffers. And finally for this festive featurette, here is Duke Nukem 3D Nuclear Winter. This is an official add-on for the awesome Duke Nukem 3D that takes place after the events of the original game. It's Christmas time and Duke gets a telegram telling him that the alien bastards are back and have teamed up with the feminist elven militia that have captured Santa and are brainwashing him. Of course, Duke isn't going to stand for this, so you have to go through 7 levels, some familiar but most of them brand new, where you'll be fighting off a whole load of really tough enemies to rescue Mr. Claus. The expansion pack starts you out in the strip club level, where you're playing poker and you have to play through the level but backwards this time, starting at the end and needing to get to the start. The level is largely the same but with a bunch of reskinned enemies. You still fight the aliens, pig cops and so on, but you'll also have to fight an army of evil snowmen and of course the female elven militia, who have a range of weapons that will make light work of you if you're not careful. The next level is then the first from the original game, and again you'll play it from back to front, fighting through the cinema and heading to where you crash landed in the main game. After this you get 5 original levels, all based on various winter things. You have to go through an Arctic tundra, Santa's workshop, a Christmas village, and eventually you meet the brainwashed Santa. Now, as it's Duke 3D, most of you will know what to expect, as the actual gameplay hasn't changed at all. It's a first-person shooter with an emphasis on blowing enemies to bits and hunting the large maze-like levels for keys to exit the level. And while it definitely does have some fun moments when you're kicking ass, the levels here are a bit too convoluted for their own good most of the time, making them take forever to get through on your first try, and they end up being quite tedious. They have done a nice job of giving it a winter theme, and all the regular enemies that appear have had a Christmas makeover with new outfits, but the new enemies look a bit cheap and they don't really fit in with the other ones. It is still fun to blow them to bits though, thanks to the classic gameplay, but it's a bit of a shame that a bit more effort wasn't really put in. There's a ton of hidden things in the levels, which is really nice, and you'll find plenty of references to other games and pop culture here, and it's all very tongue-in-cheek with the classic Duke humour. It is bloody hard though. I normally play these old school shooters on the difficulty just below the hardest one, but here I could barely get through the first level thanks to the really hard enemies and lack of ammo, so I had to drop it down a notch. Sue me. Even then, it was still tough thanks to the high number of enemies and their crazy hit scanning. On top of this, a few of the levels have instant death traps, where you'll definitely fall for the first time. Which you'll definitely fall for the first time you play, so make sure you save often. It's a shame that no new weapons were added here. It would have been a no-brainer to have a snow blower, especially with the one-liner Duke could have made, or a flamethrower to melt enemies, or even bloody snowballs, but there was nothing, just the regular ones, and they haven't even had any graphical changes. It's a bit of a shame. Overall though, if you are like me and you love all things Duke 3D, then you will likely get some fun out of this. It is included with Duke Nukem 3D on Steam, so if you're like me and bought the Apogee pack, then you should already have it available to play. I will say though that this is probably my least favourite expansion pack that I've played for Duke Nukem 3D, as the levels can be quite annoying and dragged out for too long with too many cheap deaths. But still, it's Duke 3D, so I have a soft spot for it, and it's a free expansion pack these days, so you can't really complain at that. And it is Christmas. So there you go, a bunch of games that you might want to try out this festive period. What are some other Christmas themed games that could have made the list? Let us know in the comments below. I'd like to say a huge thank you once again to Beltbuckle Bill, Laura Plays Games and Ultraflamz 64 for their contributions to this video. Make sure you check out their stuff in the links below. This is going to be the last video of 2023, so I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone for your support this year. It's been my biggest year yet, and I really appreciate all the support and comments you all leave. Next year will be even better, don't you worry, and I've got plenty of videos and series in the pipeline, so I hope you all stick around. Don't forget, if you do want your voice featured in any of my future videos, you can let me know on here or on Instagram. I'd love to get as many of you in there as I can. Now, all that's left for me to say is thank you for joining us, and have a very happy Christmas, and I'll see you in the new year.